210. Let's get to the second film that I'm going to be talking about dealing with artificial intelligence, which is Her from 2013. Written and directed by Spike Jonze, stars Joaquin Phoenix, Amy Adams, Scarlett Johansson, the voice of Rooney Mara, Chris Pratt's in there, Olivia Wilde, and the synopsis is: in the near future, a lonely writer develops an unlikely relationship with an operating system designed to meet his every need. So if you caught, or if you've been a listener for a long time, when we did our best of the 2010s list or ranking, this was one of my maybe top 5, at least top 10. I've seen it maybe a half a dozen times or more, and even when I first saw it, it was around the time I was just getting serious about movies, I could not believe how great this one was. And I think it gets better every single time I watch it. It's one of the only movies that I've ever seen in my whole life that, especially on rewatch, I actually find myself drifting off because I'm thinking so deeply about all the things that they're bringing up. Relationships, about the future, just feelings, emotions in general, friendship, whatever, identity, you name it. And I feel like there aren't really any others like it that cause me personally to have that sort of reaction, especially during the movie. Because the conversations mainly between Phoenix and Adams, and then Phoenix and Johansson, which that's the primary part of the movie, obviously, but they're so thoughtful, they're so intimate, they're so raw and deeply felt with performance. They're so introspective and reflective in the writing, and just how it's so gently directed by Spike Jonze. I can't really think of any flaws at all with the film, aside from maybe certain parts towards the end go on maybe a little too long or get slightly repetitive, but it's all momentary, fleeting stuff. So it's a near perfect film, in my opinion. Is still one of my favorites of all time, easily. Talking some specifics, though, for one, it has 5 of my favorite actors ever in this. And this was also when Joaquin Phoenix was bouncing back, his Phoenix Assance, whatever you want to call it. This is one of the big ones that really brought him back. And he also met Rooney Mara here, and they would go on to be married. And I think they have a kid now. The setup of this story, the concept, is really subtle and restrained in terms of it being a dystopian future, because everything looks fairly normal. Like, there's very little that's actually that futuristic, which that works because you can't really tell, okay, is this 5 years in the future? Is it 20 years? Whatever. It's nothing insanely far, I wouldn't think, but it's just enough to be different, a little mysterious and fresh, but it looks amazing. The cinematography, the costume design matched with that, like the lighting, and Joaquin Phoenix's really colorful attire, like the red shirts, really just pop. And honestly, help, as cheesy as it sounds, help to feed into the emotional weight and through line of everything. Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Adams, their friendship is very entertaining and very touching, because they're both loners in their own way. They're both sort of lost, kind of depressed. Phoenix can't really meet anyone. The date he has with Olivia Wilde, which is a very good scene, it goes poorly, but not, at least to me, not to the fault of him. It's more so she's had bad luck, and she's, I guess, quick to turn people off or to reject them so she's not hurt again. And then Amy Adams is with this very odd guy who doesn't really get her art or her passion, and is constantly trying to interject his ideas and overtake her rather than to listen to her. And then that also ends when Phoenix first gets the OS system and meets Samantha. her voice, like Scarlett Johansson, I mean, I've always loved her, but this is definitely one of her best of all time. When you meet her, you're instantly, because it is just the voice, I was instantly engaged. It's so bright, so fun and charming, and couldn't wait to spend more time with her and hearing the questions that she would ask him. Even before she comes into the film and there's that automated voice asking Phoenix's character these generic questions, like, what's your relationship with your mother? And he starts going on about how his mother basically sucks. One moment within that also that feels very human is when the voice asks, do you want a female or a male voice? And then he takes a second to think. Because in that moment, I felt, yes, he is heterosexual, but you could see someone picking a male voice purely as maybe just having a friend rather than a romantic partner. So he's like, well, I guess I'll go with a woman. It's just their interactions and how that relationship and Scarlett Johansson learning about life or trying to and becoming more and more self-aware. The moment maybe third or so away into the film when she asks him what marriage was like because he was married to Rooney Mara, and there's that intercutting of the happy moments with Phoenix and Mara and then the sad moments, and he's talking about situations where he's playing back arguments in his head that he had. Him mentioning the fact that both of you are growing together in your own way, but then him having hesitation, or possibly her as well, of growing without the other person in whether it be professionally, personally, and that possibly causing resentment or a difference in that relationship moving forward. When he starts having fun with her and they go to the carnival or circus or whatever, and she leads him on, like, it's a pretty goofy scene, but it's nice to see someone who you know is depressed and lonely just letting go and someone allowing him to do that. The movie is very funny as well throughout, both in writing and performance. The gamer kid, I don't know if it's meant to be like an AI or if it's actually someone on the other end. I think it's AI, but the little doll player in the game that he's playing with his fingers, and that speaks so true to all of the online gameplay where you can just put on a headset and start cussing people out, and it could be a 12-year-old kid on the other side and just trashing people for the fun of it. The scene with Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara when they're signing the divorce papers and them asking each other how they are, and Phoenix revealing, I'm dating an OS, and Rooney Mara being completely taken aback, as I feel like most people would. So what's great is I don't really fault her for criticizing him or for questioning that, because I feel like if I went through that and someone said, I'm now dating an OS in this day and age, I'd be like, oh, like, okay. And so I definitely would not be totally kosher with that, but him explaining to her what it's like, and because we know, having watched him, his emotions are as real as you can get, whether it's a computer or a human. And I know that the sex scene, let's call it, when it fades to black and it's just Phoenix and Johansson's voice orgasming, I don't really mind that. It was a little awkward sitting there in the theater with a bunch of people, because I think some were completely like, this is so weird. And it is. I don't think it's meant to be totally normal, but at least in how they were reacting and speaking to each other, it felt fairly real. And I haven't really seen another romantic or sex scene in another movie done that way, so it's unique. Joaquin Phoenix's job, which is letter writing, I think is so inventive, because it's something that in this day and age we have people writing thank you cards and happy birthday cards, that sort of thing, but if you think about it later on in the future, if it's not happening already, people in a very authentic way, as much as it could be, could write thoughtful romantic letters to people or friendship letters that you give someone all of your, some photos and information, and then they can write something very thoughtful that you might not otherwise have the eloquence to do. However, Phoenix realizes that it's other people's love that he's writing about, not his own, so that gets him down. Probably the weirdest scene in the movie, which it's meant to be, is the surrogate lover, when they hire this girl to be Scarlett Johansson's body, and they put Scarlett Johansson's, I guess, another Bluetooth system in the girl's ear, and then she wants Joaquin Phoenix to have sex with this girl while Johansson is speaking. Definitely makes you feel uncomfortable. It would be so weird if that actually happened to you, or at least I think most people would not be cool with it at first. I love when he goes to the cabin in the wintertime, or it's at least in the mountains where it's very snowy. Looks amazing, and the score is great. I didn't mention that yet. I love the piano tune that Scarlett Johansson or Samantha writes for him, and the ukulele tunes. Amy Adams's job, which is, I believe, is some sort of video game programmer. One of the funniest things in the whole film is when she shows Phoenix the video game that she's doing, and it's this single mother, single player. I don't even know what you would exactly describe it as, but you see this mom trying to make breakfast for her kids, getting in the carpool lane, it's hysterical stuff. And being around a lot of people who play games, I hear about the craziest, weirdest little one-offs. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but I hear about just the most random concepts for games that people love, and hey, that's cool. I think it's cool that you can make a game in some ways be so simple yet so addicting and enjoyable. What I love, though, in terms of the AI, let's bring it back to AI, is it's not only very smart, of course, but of all the movies that I'm going to be talking about, this is the one that seems the closest to our near future, because there are already plenty of online dating and sex simulators, all these online chat rooms. There's apps where you can make your own little AI girlfriend or boyfriend. It just goes on and on and on with the easy ways for people to create their own version of, a love life. Jumping to the end, the big reveal of Samantha or Scarlett Johansson's, let's call it cheating, when Joaquin Phoenix finds out that she's also the AI partner of, I think, thousands of other people, whether it's men and women, whoever. And the idea that really speaks to our current moment in time, when, going back to what I was saying about all the simulators and all the chat rooms and stuff, whether it's for gaming, for sex, for whatever, you don't know who you're really speaking to a lot of the time. Sometimes it's just words on a screen. You may not even see their faces. So that shock is not surprising at all, but I'm sure it's something with how people get catfished nowadays all the time, or anything along that realm. But despite the writing being a little schmaltzy, over the top, the final conversation with Scarlett Johansson and Joaquin Phoenix is very heartfelt, and that ending teaser when Joaquin Phoenix shows up at Amy Adams's apartment and she's sad and lonely too because her AI left. However, at that point, they get to spend time with each other, as they should, because they obviously have feelings, and it does have that sweet ending. I do enjoy Chris Pratt a lot in this. He has a smaller role, but I think this was right before he broke out with Guardians, Jurassic World, so he was still the more comedic Chris Pratt that I love. So I as I said, I would call it a masterpiece. So heavy 5 out of 5, 10 out of 5.